Hi there YouTubers, Stu H back again. Sorry for the interruption in service. Real life has got in the way of brewing a little bit. I have managed to brew a couple of beers in the background. I've done a hoppy American ale and a wheat beer. Those are very much what I would say go-to style beers, you know, very much in the classic band of the beer, and that's what we're going to do, what we're going to talk about today with respect to a Pilsner, a Czech premium Pilsner. So I've been trying just to nail the core styles before I start, you know, running off and doing wacky beers and things like that. So that's what my focus has been, is really just nailing some of those core recipes, creating some of those really nice go-to beers. So I won't go into too much detail in that today. What I'm going to try and do is a bit of a new format, which is kind of getting through it quite quickly. Some of my videos can tend to wander. I know some people like the warts and all videos, and I will continue to do those, but for now I'm going to just try and do some sort of rapid videos you can get through quickly, just see how I do it, which isn't the right way, it's just my way. So yeah, I'll put a screenshot up of the recipe, which is a Czech Pilsner, which I got from some book notes from a brewing book where somebody interviewed one of the head brewers at a Czech brewery, a very well-renowned Czech brewery. I'll put a link to the description of the book as well if you want to go and check that out. It's some great, again, these solid core recipes of the specific styles, and that's what I'm kind of focusing on at the moment. I will also show a screenshot. I've had my water report done recently. I'll give you the details of Phoenix Analytica, who are the guys who do the water for me. Pretty reasonably priced, good service. So what I'm going to talk to, let's kind of get straight into it. What am I going to talk about today? So this is brewing day -1. So what I'm focusing on at the moment is just getting the water ready. So I bought these 2 containers to do no chill cubes, but I rarely do that, to be honest, but they've come in pretty handy. What I tend to do is just from my raw tap, not any filtered water, because that's what I had my water report done on, because I don't believe filters as they near the end of their life, obviously the water characteristic starts to wobble and change, etc., whereas pretty much the raw water is always the raw water, and I just kind of adjust from there. So I get together, I need about 36 litres of brewing water, but I've just done 40, 20 in each. That way I can do the water treatment, split it between the 2, always leave to stand overnight at least, and then at very least you know that any of the nasties should hopefully evaporate off. But to that end, what I tend to do is put Camden tablets in. I'm just going to put 1 between these 2 containers. That's 1 between 20 litres. 20 litres. I mean, it says a lot more on there. Different people say different things online. I am also leaving it overnight to allow some of those nasties to evaporate off. I'm also going to add some calcium chloride, and because I just want to push that sulfate to chloride ratio just in the direction of the chloride, because that enhances those sweet malty characteristics, which are personally, you know, that's what I expect from a good Czech Pilsner. I don't expect it to be too hoppy. Oh, help if I turn the scales on. There we go. Hopefully you can see this on the overhead. I bought this little set of scales as sort of jewellery scales, and they will measure down to about 0.5 gram. So they're actually pretty helpful. That gives me 0.5 gram there. That can't be far off. 0.8, 0.9. There we go, 1 gram. That's just a guesstimate. But what I know is that if you look back at my water report in the video, and I'll put a link to it in the description below as well, is that my chloride and my sulfate are actually very close. One's 59 and one's 60. So just a little bit more will just help push those malty sweet characteristics. Bung all of that in the pestle and mortar, crush it up, split it between the 2, leave that to stand overnight, and then, you know, we'll be ready to go in the morning. As you'd expect, and you see the recipe. Pilsner malt, Saz pellets, and also, I don't know if this is in the recipe, but carapils, I'll probably put just a handful or a handful of two carapils in. I actually started putting this in a lot of my beers because of it just produces a really nice tight head that's very soft and foamy and has reasonable head retention. I might be using that incorrectly, but I don't know. But it's certainly the last couple of beers that I've put that in have come out very nice, including that American Hoppy Ale. So that's it for now. This video obviously will continue tomorrow when we actually do the brew. So, but that's it for now. And I do think that you know, -1 day prep on the water and allowing it to stand overnight, even if you just stick it straight into your Brew Devil and let it sit and stand in there and aerate in there and treat it in there, that's fine. You'll see I use from the Homebrew forums their calculator on there. Just bunged in the details for my water report. You'll see that. The main thing I wanted to adjust was the alkalinity. I used a lager style. They've only have some very basic styles on there, but I'm not going John Palmer's water report on this or water treatment. I'm just going for some basic treatments just to improve the quality of the liquor. So I'm just going to use AMS or Brewpack CRS. You could use lactic acid, but that calculator is designed to be used with this. So that's what I'm going to do. Super simple. And that's it. And I'll see you tomorrow when we get to brewing the beer. Cheers. Good morning, YouTubers. Hi, Stu H back again. Today is obviously Brew Day. So first thing I did was got up this morning and grabbed hold of those two containers, water containers, tipped one into the Brew Devil and one into my HLT. The HLT, funnily enough, is already up to temperature, so that's 78 degrees for sparging. And the Brew Devil, sorry, I did notice a slight error in the recipe. The first acid rest is, the recipe called for it at 20 degrees, but obviously if you know your mins and your maxes on the Brew Devil, you'll know that the Brew Devil only goes down to 25. So, you know, adjust accordingly. I think 5 degrees for 5 minutes isn't going to make a massive difference. You know, it's better than not doing that rest at all. So I stuck the Brew Devil in manual, set it to come up to 25 for an hour, and it's just been ticking over there. It's 25.6 at the moment. Tested all the major things on it. Taps are working, pumps working, etc, etc. You don't want to find out later. I programmed the recipe into the controller. I don't need to show you how to do that. You've probably done that before. If not, Jamie at Bathtub Brews has got a great guide on how to program the controller. Go and check his guide out. I'll put a link in the, I think it's probably up here somewhere, so that you can go check that out. I'll stick it in the description as well. So 3 can Pilsner malt straight from my homebrew store, or the homebrew store in Farnborough, and I measured out an additional 1.7, and then I think it was about 100 grams of carapils in there as well, which isn't in the recipe, but as I said, I use that like I use torrefied wheat, is just to try to improve the head a little bit. Arguably, I guess you could take it out and then you'd have a smash, as in a single malt, single hop beer. But yeah, it's you know, a Pilsner to me is about the head, so why not have a decent one on it? That's it really. I sterilised a few things, gave a few things a bit of a clean, but I don't worry too much on the hot side, as in before I boil, because remember, you're going to boil that wort, so anything in there is going to get killed anyway. It's a 90-minute boil too, so that's literally it. I'm not going to show you mashing in. You've all mashed in before. There's mashing in shown on one of my other videos. I'll try to get a link to that so you can check that out if you want to see mashing in. A lot of people have complained about efficiency or stuck mashes recently. And the sort of common theme that people who don't have stuck mashes is they just tend to open it about halfway through and give it a really good stir. They also don't tend to run the recirculation too high. I would say the only way you're really going to know what your recirculation is doing is if you've got a sight glass, because obviously you can see how much is in the bottom of the unit, whether that's rising or falling. So if you don't have a sight glass, you're going to have to kind of err on the side of caution. I would go slightly slower than slightly faster, as long as the grain bed is submerged, well covered. I think that's the main thing. yeah, so I'm going to get going. I'm going to press go on the controller. I'm going to mash in with the grains. I think that's all there is to it for the moment. So like that. So it's reasonably loose, but obviously you can see the grain is there, sitting just under the surface of the water. So apologies, it's struggling to focus because there's so much in the field of view, but it gives you an idea of how loose it is. Yeah, it's all good. There you go, first cock up, turn the unit off, didn't save the recipe. Oh well, only took a minute to reprogram it, away we go again. So there's a little shot of the recirculation running, just to give you an idea about the flow. I actually think that's probably a little quick. I could slow that down a little bit, but yeah, that's okay. And I might periodically move the hose around in the where it's sort of set up in the centre. I mean, ideally I'd like to cut the hose down, but it's one of those things, you know, the minute you cut it down, it's probably going to appear to be awkward for something else. So I just tend to move it around a little bit during the mashing process, so it's evenly distributing the water on top, but I don't think that's an issue. So anyway, that's a quick look at what the recirc speed looks like and how much liquid there is just above the top plate. Hi there, so just a little word on, I mentioned about understanding the recirculation and what's happening. When you've got a sight glass, obviously you can set these rubber things, and I've set that to the height of the current liquid. So if we, for instance, increase the recirculation, what that's going to do is pump more liquid on top of the grain bed, and so far there'd be less in the liquid, so you can see this falling. That's quite a nice measure. You can put the rubber band on there. Obviously I don't want it running over the grain bed, but you can also see if it's rising, you know, it's not sort of a balanced recirculation. So what you kind of want to do is just keep tweaking it till this is roughly steady. It's now, you're going to struggle to ever get it perfect, but it does give you a good indication of whether you're on a steady recirculation, which is where you want to be. You don't want to have you just want to be pumping the optimum amount of liquid around the unit. So it's just a good way. If you've got the sight glass, you can calculate what's going on. Coming up on that 63 for 45 minutes. So I've just taken the top screen off. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a stir. I'll let you have a little look at this. So hopefully you can see that's really nice and clear. And the grain isn't too badly compacted. It's coming up pretty easy. It was actually felt tighter at the beginning. Now it's expanded a little bit. The mash has loosened up a little bit. But it's just, you know, I think just personal best practice, just give it a good stir. Certainly before you're going to go into the long mashing steps. If you're doing a lot of short rests, if not, just do it halfway through the long mash step. See, that's nice and loose now. It's expanded up nicely. And that's a really nice consistency. You know, you can get the spoon through that all the way to the bottom plate. There's no dough balls or anything in there. So I'm pretty happy with that. We'll just go into the 45-minute step, and I'll report back after that. My Brew Devil kept cutting out at the beginning. I wasn't quite sure what that was. I also kicked myself slightly for not recording the recipe back in, because I had to pre-program it again. It happened 2-3 times. I couldn't work it out. And then I realised it was cutting out in as the compressor for the fridge was kicking on. So since I've turned the fridge off, it seems to have stopped cutting out and it's mashing fine. It has been going for about half an hour now. So just a quick one, because I have seen that come up before, people complaining about it cutting out, and I know there can be a number of reasons for that. It could be the overprotection temperature, or the bottom of the unit drying out, or something like that, or maybe even just a bit of moisture in the unit. But that definitely seemed to fix my problem, just making sure there's nothing like fridge on the same ring main that's flicking on and off constantly. Right. Yep. So next sort of stage, got 19 minutes left on the 45-minute mashing step. Just got the fermenter out, giving it a bit of a clean, trusty pipe brush up inside all of the fittings, you know, the racking port and the bottom conical port, you know, a good clean inside, and then just rinse down with cold water, and I'm just sort of spraying it down with star sand every sort of 10-15 minutes, just keeping it damp. Little tip on the star sand front: if you've got containers, then work out how much star sand you need for that container and then write it on it, and keep a syringe around that suits that size. That obviously will end up in the fridge in position. When I'm ready to pump it in, it'll just get pumped in that location, making sure I've turned all the taps off, because nobody's ever done that before, right? Started filling a fermenter with the taps open on it. So quick tip on the yeast on the recipe is you've probably noticed there's 3 choices of yeast on there. You can use any or all of them. You could double your batch size and try 2 different ones if you wanted to in 2 separate fermenters. What I managed to get was Y yeast 2007. That's just what my local brewing shop had. They didn't have the other 2 liquid yeasts, which were White Labs WLP 800 and Y Yeast 2001. So just a little tip, on the back of the pack here it says pitch at 65 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 to 20 degrees C. If you check the web page, that's not what it says. So it is a lager yeast, so I would have expected to be fermenting at a much lower temperature than that. So I checked the web page, and the web page actually says 8.8 to 13.8 degrees C. As you can see, that pretty much lines up with the recipe, which starts out at 9 degrees for 4 days for primary fermentation, and then 10 days at 9 degrees for the secondary. And then the tertiary fermentation is just for a couple of days, just raise the temperature to 14 degrees. The reason you want to keep it low at the beginning is a lower temperature stops the yeast from creating some of those off flavours, producing some of the nasty esters. Ramping it up at the end just supports the yeast as they're starting to slow down and have to consume those harder to consume leftovers, which are can be those nasty flavours or those byproducts of the primary and secondary fermentation. So just raising the temperature just supports the yeast through that, helps them chew through the last of the different things that were created as part of the fermentation process. So okay, so it has just finished the 63 degrees, 45 minutes. It's just clicked onto a 1 minute step at 3000. However, I am going to crack the top and give it a stir, so making sure to turn the pump off first. So as you can see, really nice and clear. The bed's definitely sort of caked down a bit, so I'm just going to get in there and give it a stir. I did, of course, pull the telescopic malt pipe up a little bit. It's really nice and soft. You know, no hint of a stuck mash here. However, you know, it's still good to give it a stir. We just want to make sure that you get every little bit out of every little bit of the grain, if possible. So just giving that a final stir, and we're going into that final. We're going into a scarification step. I guess it's, you know, you could go decoction mashing, but it just seems like almost too much fuss to me. Taking out portions of the wort and boiling it, the portion of the mash out and boiling it just seems like a real challenge. Not something I'm particularly well set up for, I have to say. But that's the final stir. I put the top back on. The unit is currently just coming up. The unit is just coming up 1 minute for 3000 to get up to 72. There you go. There you go. It's going to click over, and that will go on to its next step now. After that 1 minute's complete, we'll have 30 minutes at 72. So we've just finished the mashing steps with the mash out. That mash out was at 78 degrees. So yeah, 78 degrees for 10 minutes. So I've just put the unit into pause just while I sort out a couple of bits, raise the grain bed, start draining. I like to do this in a couple of stages. You can tell that that's draining. You can hopefully hear the sound from the microphone. But that is actually draining out now. I don't like to lift it up too high at this stage. So I'm going to let that drain down for a while, see where we get to take my big jug. I'm not going to do any fancy sparging today. I'm literally just going to batch sparge with a jug and just gently pour it over the top plate. I've still got left the top plate in and everything. I don't really want to disturb the grain bed. The water's lovely and clear, so I don't want to cloud it up unnecessarily. So I'm just going to gently pour the sparge water onto the top of the grain mesh. Hi there, so we're back and we're into the 90-minute boil. Hopefully you can see that. It's a nice steady boil. I've hooked the hop spider, hop basket just on here just to try and get it sort of, I don't know, an extra couple of centimetre and a half down. Obviously this is it's only a 30-litre brew and a 50-litre Brew Devil, so occasionally I just steamed you up, just sort of dropping that down and giving it a good sort of soak periodically, just to make sure that those hops are getting as much exposure to the water as possible. Hi there, so we're at the back end of the brew day now. Boil's finished. Cooling down, it's down to 22.6. The groundwater temperature today is about 19 degrees, so I'm probably going to tap out about 20. I've got the fridge on maximum. I'll transfer over to the fermenter in the fridge and try to knock it down to 9 degrees in the fridge. There's not much more I can do with that. I'll keep an eye on it and pitch the yeast at about 14. That's about as much as you can do, really. Volumes wise, I'm probably a little bit ahead of where I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be on about 24 litres. Once it had been cooled, I'm at 25 at the moment. I doubt down to 9 degrees will account for that last bit of shrinkage. I think the good news is I'm massively up on my numbers, so I may have to revise this recipe. Maybe it's something to do with doing a Pilsner, but I've just got a lot more efficiency out of the grain than the software thought I would. I had my brew house efficiency, mash efficiency at 74%, and I was supposed to be at post boil, I was supposed to be at 1045 and I am at 1525. So it would have been a 5% Pilsner. Hey, it's going to be a 5.7% or whatever. I'll run the numbers later on and have a look. It's, you know, I don't mind it. I don't mind a Pilsner having a little bit more alcohol bite. That's quite usual. I went in at the bottom end for a Pilsner from a ABV perspective anyway, so all in an easy, good brew day. It's going to take a while, probably about a month before this beer is ready to have a first try and have a first look at. So I'll probably post this video and then just do like a 3-4 minute just follow-up video of the beer itself and how it came out. So hi there, so as you can see, I've just got a camlock elbow on here and I'm just using the Brew Devil pump. Just literally pumping it straight over into the fermenter and aerating in that. I've chilled the fridge as much as I can. I'll push it back, put the lid on, try to get it to about 14 degrees, then I'll pitch the yeast. If I'm honest, I'm a bit suspect about that yeast. Normally it's one of those smack packs and it's supposed to expand. It hasn't expanded. Anytime I've had one that didn't expand, it didn't ferment and I ended up having to go and buy White Labs yeast or something. So yeah, I'm not a massive fan of those Y yeast smack packs. I've probably had 4 or 5 of them in the last year and only one's worked. Anyway, we'll see. I've got time. As long as I get it chilled down, I can always pop in the homebrew store tomorrow and grab something else. So yeah, that's it. Transfer it over. I'll let it stand. I'm just going to pump everything over and not worry about it too much. I'll let it chill down, stand, and then I'll just, after a couple of days, I'll just tap off, you know, or maybe in about 24 hours time, I will just tap off anything that settles out via the bottom conical port. That, you know, it's not going to have an impact on the flavour then. So that's it. That's pretty much the end of my brew day. I've got to clean the Brew Devil, and that's about it really. Everything else is done, and a little bit of a tidy up in here, and then light the barbecue, I think. So hopefully this was helpful. Give us a shout if you've got any questions. If you're going to try this brew, let me know. Maybe we can find a way of doing a bottle swap to see how we both got on. That's it. All right. Happy brew. Cheers.